This is Rick Hall Jr., and I'm at Fame Recording Studios in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. You're listening to Real Life and Other Fantasies with Melvin E.
You are listening to Real Life and Other Fantasies, a podcast by engaging storytellers for engaged story listeners. Here's your host, author and journalist, Melvin E. Edwards.
Hello, fellow storytellers, and welcome to this edition of Real Life and Other Fantasies. For this episode, I was sitting in the offices of Fame Recording Studios in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and I had the chance to talk to Linda Hall, the wife of the late Rick Hall, who founded Fame Studios and moved the operations to Muscle Shoals 60 years ago this year. She was initially reluctant to talk, but agreed to give me a few minutes. She then started telling her stories of faith, resilience, love, and music that lasted for 45 minutes. I didn't want to interrupt her, so I didn't. I will also present this episode without any interruptions. While we were talking, you will hear some emergency sirens, sniffling from allergies and tears, and a couple of people who were sitting nearby during the interview. But if you listen all the way through, I guarantee you will be moved in one way or another. Please enjoy this episode. So, Ms. Hall, thanks for joining us, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So, first, can you tell me the first story you recall from this building here in Muscle Shoals?
From this building, I think the first thing I remember was in August after we built the building. Rick was so proud of it. And two of our children were born, and they were very small. And Billy Sherrill, who Rick had started Fame with back several years before that, came down from Nashville to see him and to see the studio. And I can remember how proud Rick was to be able to show Billy what he had done and what he had accomplished. And that was one of my first memories here.
What is your best memory here?
Well, have you got all day?
As much time as you need.
I guess the best memories would be surrounding Mac Davis when he would come here and record. Because he came here and recorded more albums than anybody else ever recorded in Muscle Shoals. He did 13 albums here. And I wasn't for sure I was telling the truth when I would tell that, and I called David Hood and asked him had they ever done more, how many was the most albums they'd ever done on one artist. And he told me they had done 3 or 4 on a couple of artists. And I said, well, okay, I just want to make sure I was telling the truth about it, because we were different from others, that particular studio, because we were a production house and they were a tracking house. They would do the tracks and then they would go somewhere else to finish the product. When we started, we finished the product. Sometimes from having the songs created here to it being ready to be pressed when it left. And it would take Rick 3 to 4 months to do an album. It would take them a week to do the tracks on an album. But Matt would come here, and it was always a fun time. He was always happy and jovial, and him and Rick fought like cats and dogs, but they still loved each other, and they created a lot of good music. I guess I would consider that being the happiest time. It was a lot of stressful times around here too. Lots of stressful times.
Just among the musicians?
No, it was just the stress of being able to, every session that Rick did had to be better than the last one. If he had a #1 record the last time, he was shooting for a #1 record this time too. And it was always when he was in that, quote, producer's mode, that I stayed out of the way. I let him do his thing, and I walked softly everywhere I walked. Because when he got in that mode, he was very focused, and he didn't want anybody to distract him from where he was going and what he was going to be doing. and what he was going to be creating. And I learned early on in our marriage that that was one of the things that I had to be very cautious of, is when he was producing records, that that was his love right then, and I took second place to it, and I knew it, but I was willing to do it.
It seems musicians and creative people have very sometimes divergent personalities, and sometimes they're very fun-loving and creative, and other times they're very goal-oriented and sort of taskmaster type of things.
That's exactly right. Now, when he was in his creative mode, he was not a fun person. But when he was not, he was an awesome person. He was a lot of fun. He was funny. He loved to do lots of different things. He was not only creative in music, he was creative in artistic things. He was a great decorator. He would create and make things. He would literally draw out a pattern to do things. I know after we moved out to the ranch, we went to Bellengrath Gardens down in Mobile. And he came back home, and we had a park. We called it our park by our house. It had a big pond on it, and he decorated, or he created stuff all around that pond. He built a little house. He built bridges. He built gazebos and trellises for roses and all these things, and he would design them. He would draw them out. But he got the idea when we went to Bellengrath Gardens, which it was just a show place. It was, and he wanted to make our place into a show place, not for the public, but for us and for our friends. And he did that. And it was just awesome to watch the things that he could create and the vision that he had for doing that kind of stuff. I couldn't imagine I couldn't get in my head what he was going to be doing. I couldn't hear what he was doing in his music. He would come home and bring his music home. He would play mixes to me. He would play 3 mixes. Well, they all sounded the same to me. But to him, there was variations in them. And he knew what they were. And I said, but Rick, the normal ear can't hear that. He said, oh, yes, but they can. They'll know when it's right. And he would do his product that way. He would do anything he was doing that way. I know I went home one day from work, and our bedroom had a whole wall of windows in it, huge windows, and we had drapes on it that were floral drapes. And I started to close the drapes, and I thought, what's happened to these drapes? They're fading. And I got to looking at him, and he had been coloring the flowers brighter. They wasn't bright enough to suit him, so he was coloring them with a I don't guess it was magic marker. It was probably a fabric pen, but he was coloring those flowers on it to make them brighter. If we had a rug and it had designs on it or whatever, and it faded a little bit, he'd color them back the colors they want. We'd buy oil paintings, and I'd come home and it'd be up on an easel, and he'd be painting them more vibrant colors than if they were pastels. He wanted bright colors, and he'd be painting them. And I've got oil paintings hanging in my house now where he had fixed them the way he wanted.
So even though he was in an auditory medium, it wasn't just the audio portion that he was affixed to, it was a visual too.
It was visual, yeah, and smells. It was very important for our house to smell a certain way. It was very important for the studio to smell a certain way. Well, after living with him 58 years, guess who's the same way now?
So what were his favorite smells?
Magnolia. There was a orchard smell. I don't know what it was, but it was a Pier 1 had it. No, is that the name of the company? Pier 1. They had this spray that was an apple orchard smell, and he loved that. But he didn't like real floral stuff, things that was overbearing. He didn't like that. He wanted subtle things. But the odor smell was very important to him, about how your house smelled or how your car smelled. And that kind of
It seems like smells are connected to memories, the memory sense of your mind. And so any idea what those smells could have been connected to for him?
No, I don't know. Because he didn't have a lot of happy memories from his childhood, except for his daddy. And I'm sure that was good smells there. I mean, they lived in a house with a dirt floor, no toilet, no running water, no nothing, just a big one-room shack with no windows in it, just front and back door. And they had to take a bath in the creek. So I don't imagine they were smelling very good.
So obviously
most
things
of the time.
improved for him throughout his life.
Oh yeah,
So
it
what
did.
are some of your favorite memories with him as your husband rather than as the record producer?
When our first child was born was a very special memory to us, to both of us. It was very special for us. Well, when all of our kids was born, it was very special. But just having your first baby and he had never owned anything. He had never had anything that he knew wouldn't leave him. And I think for him to have this child and to know that's mine, and that's it. And I think it just made a big impact on him when that first baby was born, because he started changing then. He started changing a lot. He quit playing in bands. He quit traveling and going. I mean, he not quit traveling in the music industry, but quit traveling and going playing bands. He was playing at Fort Campbell, Kentucky all the time then. Well, he quit that. I mean, he may have played 3 times after Ricky was born. But he didn't want to leave that baby. He wanted to be, maybe not in the house with him, but in the town with him, And he just loved him so much, loved all of our boys so much. But he worked so hard and so much to get us above where we were, because we were living in government housing when we married and paying $34 a month rent. And I can remember hiding from the milkman because I didn't have the money to pay him. And it so happened he was a guy I went to high school with, which was very embarrassing to me, because people had acquaintances or people that friends that I'd had in high school looked down on me for marrying Rick. They couldn't have anything to do with me. I had married a long-haired hippie. And they just, thought I was trash. And time changes everything. But anyway, it was very embarrassing to me to not be able to pay the milkman. And his mother would send us money. She was trying to get on the good side of Rick, and she would send us money and send the babies clothes and things like that. And she sent me some money right after that, and I had the money to pay the milkman the next time. But he was working really, really hard to get us out of that poverty, and that's where we were. We were in a poverty situation. And he worked real hard at trying to be successful, because he had promised me, if you'll give me 3 years in the music business and I don't have some success, I'll quit and go work at Reynolds. I said, okay. I never gave him an ultimatum, because I knew if I did, he'd choose music and not me. He denied that till he died, but I don't believe him still. But I wasn't willing to take a chance. So he did have success. I mean, his first thing he couldn't. And the old studio was, you better move on. Well, I've lost to begin with. I mean, the first thing. And then Jimmy Hughes was the first thing he cut here, and it was a success. It took a little while, but it was a hit record. But he worked long hours, lots and lots of long hours. A lot of times during the whole week, he wouldn't see the boys, and the boys wouldn't see him until Saturday, because he was working when they got home from school, and he was asleep when they got up. So he wouldn't see them a lot of times for a week at a time. But he always would, when he come home, I don't care what time of the night it was, he went in and he kissed each one of those boys and loved them, even if they were in their sleeps. And I don't think they even know that. But he always did, went in and loved on the boys. And he just, it was very special. And he'd always spend Sunday with us. And he bought him I remember after Rodney was born, he bought us a movie camera. And he would take us out to different places out in the country or wherever and make movies of me and the boys walking down the gravel road or just whatever, And he was always doing that, making a lot of pictures and that type of stuff. But I can remember, and this is still so sad to me. Ricky was little. He had bronchopneumonia when he was real young, and he was hoarse. And I can remember him coming in and saying, at night, because he loved his daddy. Oh, man, he loved him so much. And he would come in, and that little hoarse voice said, Mama, is Daddy coming home for supper tonight? Well, it would just break my heart, because I'd have to say, no, honey, he's working tonight. He can't come home. And it would just break my heart, because I knew what Rick was doing. I knew he was busy. And he was trying to make a better life for us, and I knew it. But it was hard for little boys to understand that. But then when they got old enough to play sports, it all changed. Rick would start taking off. He would go play ball with them. He would coach them. He didn't know how to play baseball. He'd never played baseball because when he was growing up, the best he could do for a baseball bat was a broomstick and a rock for a ball, you know. And he didn't know anything about the rules or anything, but he would buy books and he would read them and he would study and he would learn how to be a baseball coach and coach those boys. And he'd got to the point, but then he had some money. I'll never forget, he bought a pitching machine. And for these are for young, what do they call them? Young little league players. And he would have that pitching machine out for those boys to practice. He would build baseball fields in town here for the kids to go and practice on, put up backstops and all this stuff. And he'd build scoreboards, or had one of his friends, and he'd buy all the equipment, and they'd build a scoreboard for the football field. And he just enjoyed doing all that stuff. Today we have movies that he made of all those boys playing ball and playing pee-wee ball. And Rodney has put them on zip drives or on CDs, and he puts them on Facebook every once in a while. And you should see the reaction of all the kids that played them. They say, "That's me," or "That's me," or "That's me." And it's just, they still call him Coach. And there would be kids on the baseball team that couldn't buy a new glove. If he'd go buy them a new glove, or he'd buy new tennis shoes. Nobody'd ever know it. But he just, he thrived on that. And I can remember him coming home after the baseball games. And he was by those baseball games like he was producing records. I mean, you didn't just go in and play. You went in to win.
That's how I was going to ask you.
Business too.
It seemed like he was as focused on when he got to that stage in life, when he was spending time with the kids and coaching, that he was the same person that he was in the record studio.
That's right.
Or that he was when he was painting, making brighter the curtains or the carpet, or building something out by the pond.
Yeah, whatever he was doing, he was giving 150% to it. And I can remember him coming home and after the ball game, and I don't know whether they'd won or lost, but I can remember him laying in the bed talking to his assistant coach, and he was just preaching and just slamming his hand down on that mattress, just bouncing me in the bed where he was. And they were strategizing. They were going to do this and they were going to do that next time they got ready to play. But he was got through the motorway when he made him. There's just he was hard to live with. He was a perfectionist, and he wanted everybody else to be a perfectionist. He pushed me hard. He pushed the boys hard, very hard, all of us. And I look back and I think, how did we make it? Steven Tyler asked me that. How did I stay married to him that long? And I told him through a lot of prayer and a lot of love. And that was it. I did love him unconditionally. I had to live with him. I mean, there's no other choice. But I did love him so much, and he wasn't easy to love.
That's a country song.
That song, and I probably wasn't either. Yeah. But I think back about his life and what all he went through when he was a young man and a kid. I wonder what I would be like if I'd come with that. What kind of personality I would have. What kind of anger or resentment or whatever would I have if I had to live that life.
Well, a lot of those things are set really early in life, and it takes a lot of intentional work to break through that.
I mean, his mother left him when he was 4 years old, and he remembers her leaving. He remembers the car she was in and what the car looked like. Of course, he didn't know she was leaving for good. He thought she was going to the hospital and would be back. But he remembered it was a black Buick with red spoke wheels. And that was so vivid in his mind. And he took me to the place where it was, where it happened, where she left, and showed me where he was standing and where the car was. And those kind of things had to be so ingrained in his mind. And his dad always taught him that all women would go bad, regardless. Well, I spent 58 years proving that old man wrong. And that was a big thing for me. I mean, I was overboard on going the other direction to keep Rick from ever doubting me or distrusting me. After I started work here, he never wanted me to work outside the home. He said, I'll never let you work for another man. But he did want me to come to work here. Well, after I came to work here, I wouldn't go to eat with one of the writers or any man unless I took the secretary or one of my kids with me. I just didn't do it. I didn't want to give him any food for doubt. So I just went, and these were like my kids here. I mean, I was old enough to be their mama or their grandmother now. But they were like family to me, but I just wouldn't do it. It was just, I remember Larry Gatlin coming down here and calling and wanting me to meet him over at a restaurant here. And I didn't know whether Larry's by himself or who he was with or anything about it. So I told the secretary, I said, I'll go, but you're going with me. We'll lock the doors and you're going to go with me. And we went and he had a whole bus load of people with him, which it didn't matter, But he wanted to borrow my car to go to the studio to the ranch to see Rick. So he didn't tell me that when he called me. But anyway, I was just that cautious about things that I didn't want to ever give him any doubt in his mind. I wanted that to be one of the things that he could feel secure in his life. That was my relationship with him, but he always thought I was going to leave. Up until 3 months before he died.
Wow.
Because when he was in rehab, he told me I would leave to go home and fix his supplements. I was giving him a lot of supplements to try to keep him out of pain. He would tell the nurse that she's not coming back. She's left. She's not coming back. So he came.
That image from his mother. Still.
Yeah. So I came in one day and she told me that. And I put my hand on my hip and I looked at him. I gritted my teeth and I glared my eyes at him. And I said, Rick Hall, I'm going to tell you something. You hadn't run me off in all these years. You can't do it now. So you might as well decide you're going to have to put up with me for the rest of your life. So he quit saying it. I reckon it just took that to make me mad to make him feel secure that I wasn't going anywhere.
So obviously you provided a lot of stability at home for him and the kids. Do you think he felt that kind of security in the music studio, in the recording studio?
He was very confident in himself. He had an ego as big as the world. I didn't realize what his music had affected people until after he died. And I wish I'd known, but then again, somebody had to keep his ego deflated. But, it was, I don't know whether he did or not. Because I never went back there in the studio when he was back there. I never watched a session. First session I ever saw was Steven Tyler. And that was after Rick was dead.
Do you think there's any way he could have been as successful as he was if he had mellowed somewhere along the way?
I don't know. I doubt it. Because I think it took that, I've got to show you. I'm going to show you I'm somebody. And he was always striving to be that somebody. And I don't know whether he realized he ever made it or not. Because I know he kept saying that over and over in the documentary. I just wanted to be somebody. Because he had always been considered that kid on the wrong side of the tracks. He was poor. Mom and daddies wouldn't let their daughters date him if they were, quote, upper crust of the community.
The silk stocking crowd, as Rick Jr. called it.
Yeah, the silk stocking crowd. That's exactly right. They wouldn't let him date him. And they always thought they was better than him and that kind of things. And he just had something to prove to the world, to himself, to the world. I guess to me, too. I don't know. He didn't have to prove anything to me.
When I interviewed Rick Jr., he told me he thought that influenced how he interacted with the black musicians who came to record with him and how it was so different from early 60s Alabama as a whole,
totally.
and how it sort of started to change this area because of his interaction with the musicians.
Yeah, it was something he never considered the color. He didn't care what color you were. It was how talented you are, how well you can sing, how well you can play. That was all that mattered to him.
Was there any blowback from that from people in the community?
I never felt any. We were never afraid. We were always cautious, but not afraid. He was afraid a few times when he went to conventions where him and one other guy would be the only two white people there. He was concerned a couple of times with the safety.
Was that in Alabama or was that somewhere else?
No, I don't know where it was. It was away from here, maybe in Atlanta or New Orleans or somewhere. It was somewhere else. But he never felt, I don't think he ever felt fearful in the black and white situation at all. We did at another time in our lives, but it didn't concern that.
At what point in his life do you think he was the happiest?
The happiest? After his grandkids was born. That was just icing on the cake for him. And but believe it or not, he was jealous of me and the grandkids.
How so?
I gave them more attention than they did him. But he loved them dearly. He loved his grandkids, and he would do things with them and let them do things that he never dreamed about letting his own kids do.
I had an episode of my podcast this week where I talked to my guest about being a grandparent, and so there should be some way that you should be able to be a grandparent first.
Yeah,
because
that's right.
It seems to be so much more fun.
Reason,
but of course, it's not as much pressure.
That's the reason they call them grand. But he loved doing things with the grandchildren. He loved building things for them and teaching them things. And you'd hear him out in the yard talking with them, just telling them all kind of things about life. And he dearly loved them. And the older we got, and then we got to travel a lot in our later years. So he was very happy doing that. We loved traveling and historical stuff. We're big into history things. We'd get a route that we'd go places and do a route that we really loved, and then we'd come back and get Rick and Cindy and take them, and then we'd get some friends and take them. We'd go 4 or 5 times the same route, but we always loved doing that and going then sharing it with other people. He loved doing that.
Yeah, the story you mentioned earlier about going to Europe and not being able to find his favorite things. Can you relay that story?
We went to Europe in '95, and we flew into Frankfurt, Germany. Then we went, and he was afraid of flying. He didn't like to fly. I mean, in the early days, he would get on the airplane and fly 90. Anytime didn't bother him at all. And when the babies was little, and here I was bawling my eyes out because he was leaving. I just knew he was going to get killed, and I'd been having 3 kids to raise. Then as he got older, he wouldn't fly after they got grown, and it would have been such a catastrophe. But anyway, we went to Europe, and we flew over there, and he didn't want to fly, but just over there. And we rode the train the rest of the time we was there. We was there for 19 days. We flew into Frankfurt and then flew down to Nice, France. And then we got a car or a train and went everywhere else. And after we'd been there about 3 days, he got to wanting peanut butter. Well, by the time we got to Germany, he was really wanting peanut butter. And so we had the guy to start taking us to grocery stores. And there was no peanut butter. Or Archway oatmeal cookies.
So specifically Archway.
Yes.
By the way, those were my favorite when I was a kid.
Definitely Archway. Oatmeal raisin cookies.
Yes, those were my favorites.
Well, we couldn't find. And all we could find would be hard cookies and the Nutella. That was the closest
we
could find to peanut butter. And I thought, how do these people survive without peanut butter over here? But I did find out that was an American thing. So we made it without peanut butter, but he sure ate it when he got back home.
So did he ever think about going back after he found out there was... So
no.
he didn't petition the government for a redress of peanut butter?
Fly. And we had to do everything we wanted to do in Europe while we was over there. Because I knew I'd never get him back across the pond. Yeah.
Specifically because of the peanut butter or because of flying? Okay.
Just flying over water. He did that. He just did not. And he'd tell me halfway over, there's nowhere to land out here. We have trouble.
So what is your favorite memory from that trip?
Oh, believe it or not, the most, I guess, memorial thing that we did was go to a concentration camp. That was one of the things that really has stuck with me all these years. We went to Dachau in Munich, and we were there, and a lot of it has been torn down, and he was videoing all of this. He videoed everything we did over there. And after we got back and listened to it, we could hear a bell tolling the whole time we was in that concentration camp, but we didn't hear it then. I guess we just weren't paying attention. But we got around to the crematory, and we was looking at it, and they were doing a movie about it in English over there that we wanted to see. So we were sort of in a hurry to get back there. And there was an old man that come walking through the shrubbery, and he was a big guy, and he walked up to Rick, and he said, "You American?" And Rick said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm prisoner here. Americans come now, I'm free. Americans come now, I'm free." And he grabbed Rick and hugged him.
Wow.
And that stuck with me, but we were in a hurry and we went on, and he gave us some cards and was trying to tell us about something about somebody from America coming there, but we couldn't understand what he was telling us. So we went on, did our whole trip, and came back home, and we were watching Connie Chung on CBS News one morning, and this old man was on there. And it was the 50th anniversary of the freeing of the prisoners. And that's why he was trying to tell us that she had been there and had filmed them. But he was talking about it. And it really hit me after I got back home. We actually met somebody that was there in that concentration camp. Wow. But that just really stuck with me.
How did it affect Rick?
Pardon?
How did it affect your husband?
About the same way. But one of the other things that really stuck out to me was that our tour guide did not want to take us to the concentration camp. He wouldn't go in with us. And he said, "We're not proud of this." And I said, "Well, there's things," we told him, "there's things in our country we're not proud of either, but it's still history. And we don't want to, think about that either." But he didn't want to take us. But he would go in everywhere else with us. But he wouldn't go in there with us. Mm-hmm. But we had a lot of fun. We rode the train all over Europe. And it was an experience for us. Neither one of us could speak anything but English, and not even good at that. But we made it. And but it was a lot of fun. And, just to take off wandering. But we were bad to do that when we'd go on vacation, even in the States. We'd just get in our car and say we're going somewhere, and get to the end of the road and say, "Which way you want to go?" And we said, "That way or that way," and we'd end up somewhere. But that was the most fun vacations. But we did enjoy our traveling time a lot. The only thing was the grandbabies was little, and I didn't want to stay gone from them. So I got to hurry back home.
I got one more question for you. And I was originally going to ask about Rick's legacy, but I think musically anybody who's listening can research it. So I'm going to tweak the question a little bit and ask you, what do you think your legacy is here in Muscle Shoals?
I'll tell you how I want to be remembered.
Okay.
As a Christian lady. All the rest of it don't matter. That's my mission in being here, is to let people see what God has done in our life. Rick was saved 4 years before he died. I was a church pianist when I married him. And my goal before I met him was to be a church pianist and a Baptist deacon's wife. And God put a honky-tonk player in my life. Messed my plan up totally.
God has a sense of humor.
But he has a sense of humor, and he knew what he was doing. it was a lot of turmoil. I won't say really turmoil, but friction, I guess, between us about religion and going to church. When I first met him, he told me, of course, he'd been married before and she was dead, but he had told me he had gone to church with her, he had sang in the choir, he taught a Sunday school class, and all this stuff. And I immediately assumed he'd do that with me. Wrong. He didn't go to church with me much when the boys was little, and I'd go right on and take them, and he'd always try to find something for us to do on Sunday morning. And I said, I'll do it this afternoon, but I'm not going to do it this morning. I'm going to church. And he bought a boat, and that was what he wanted to do every Sunday. I said, we'll do it this afternoon. Then I gave in at one point in our life, and I'd start going and doing what he wanted to do. And the Lord really convicted me of that, and I quit doing it. Started back going to church every Sunday. Then eventually, after the boys got grown, after the grandkids came along, he started going to church with me, and it just evolved into him going to church, going to Sunday school, and becoming a Christian eventually. And and I didn't pressure him. I did for a long time. I guess I prayed him. I prayed as hard as I could pray about it. Had everybody I knew praying for him. But finally one day he walked in. This after we had the sheriff's ranch had taken the house over in this girls' ranch, and we were living in town. And he come in one day and he said, I want to talk to Brother Bob, who had been our pastor at one time, but he was an evangelist at this time. And I said, well, I'm sure he'll talk to you anytime you want to. And just sort of let it go with that. About 2 weeks later, he come in, he slammed his fist down on the table, just rattled everything on the table. He said, I want to talk to Brother Bob now. I said, oh, okay. So I called him. So what happened, Brother Bob was home at that time. And so he talked to Rick, and Rick said, he asked Rick, he said, what do you want me to talk to me about? Because Rick told him, he said, I need to talk to you. He said, what do you want to talk to me about? And Rick said, my soul. So Brother Bob told me later, he said, it's the first time anybody's ever told me they want me to talk to them about their soul. They said it's usually their wife, their finances, their house, or some car or something. But never just come out and say, I want to talk to you about my soul. So he came over to the house, and they sat out on the patio and was talking, and I was in the house pacing and praying. And Rick told him, he said, preacher, I'm just not ready yet. And Brother Bob said, you better get ready, son, you don't have a lot of time. So he left, and about 2 weeks later he called him. He didn't tell me he wanted to talk to him, he just called him himself. And Brother Bob's wife's my Sunday school teacher, so my class was out at his house, and they were out on a pontoon boat. And Brother Bob answered the phone, and Rick told him he wanted to talk to him, wanted him to come over. He said, okay, I'll be over in a little while. So he hung up, and the ladies all asking who it was, and he said, it's Rick, he wants me to come talk to him. They said, well, go now, go, Brother Bob. He said, I'm not going to do it. He said, I've waited on him for 40 years, and he'd just wait on me a little while longer. So finally he came over, and Rick gave his heart to the Lord, and he told Brother Bob, he said, I want you to baptize me. He said, you think Brother Brett would care? And Brother Brett is Brother Bob's son, and he's our pastor. You think he'd care? And he said, no, I don't think he'd care a bit. So when Brother Bob baptized him, he said, I sure hope I hadn't forgot how to do this. It's been 9 years since I baptized him. For mine and Rick's sake, too. But anyway, he was a totally different person. He was just so calm and laid back, and no more screaming and hollering and getting all bent out of shape about the least little thing. He was just different.
Rick Jr. and I had talked about that a little bit. So I said that was the other question was my last one, but I have a follow-up to that. Do you think he was mad at God?
I think he was, yes. Because after Faye died, and then after Daddy's died, those was two people he loved more than anything in the world. He felt like God had just turned his back on him. I mean, he told me that. He said, I just feel like God has deserted me. And I said, well, Rick, if all that stuff hadn't happened, you would never met me. We wouldn't have these boys. And he said, well, I guess that's one way to look at it. But her parents accepted me as their daughter. It was a very awesome relationship, unusual relationship, but they literally accepted me as their daughter. And Rodney, the youngest boy, thought they were his grandparents.
Not her parents, you mean his the wife who died.
Parents, yeah. And that was the only person he wanted to take me to meet, was her mom and dad. And a lot of times Rick would be out of town, and I'd take the 3 boys and go down there and spend the weekend, just like they were my parents. And they were so good to us, and that my kids called them Mama and Papa. Matter of fact, they were Ricky's grandparents at his wedding. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they stood up with him as the grandparents. Because my mother was dead, and I was estranged from my daddy, so they just took their place. That's exactly what they did. And it was an awesome relationship. And it's been some kind of a road to travel. I think about all the things we've been through, and I won't go into what we went through with my parents, but we really had to overcome a lot to stay together. There was a lot of bumps in the road, a lot of tragedies happened, but we depended on each other. And I wanted to leave him. I wanted to leave a lot of times. But I didn't think he could survive without me. That's pretty egotistical of me, but that's the way I felt. And I loved him too much to let him fall.
Well, I appreciate you opening up yourself and making yourself vulnerable and sharing stories with me. I won't ask you any more questions right now.
But I mean, I'm on a roll.
I always have lots of questions to ask, but I'll end it here and
got 20 more minutes.
I'll end the episode here. But thank you, Ms. Hall, for sharing your life with me and with the audiences when they hear this. And whether or not you appreciate it or understand it, your legacy is tied with his, and the music that was created in this building is the soundtrack of America and has been 60 years in the making, and who knows how long into the future it will carry on beyond our lifetimes.
I hope so. That's my goal. After he died, I was sitting out here at the red light, and Tanya Tucker's got a song that says, "What am I going to do with me without you?" It's talking about divorce. But I heard it, and I thought, that's me. What am I going to do with me without him? Because everything I did was to make him happy. And I didn't have him to make happy anymore. And I thought, all I can do is ever keep his legacy going. Ever keep what he started going. And I knew Rodney wanted to do this. And I thought, well, I'd come back and keep the books. I can talk. I can tell stories. I can do whatever it takes to keep it going. But I never realized that one decision would have such an effect on me and on the people that walk through these doors. It's just amazing to me how people feel about this place. I mean, I don't feel it because I've always been here. But other people tell me they feel something when they walk in this building. I don't know whether he did or not. I don't know whether he realized. But he did tell me, I may have already said this, but he did tell me about 3 months before he died, you're going to be surprised how the world reacts when I die. And I just thought to myself, well, you arrogant old man. Didn't say it, but I thought it. And after he died, Rebecca, the granddaughter, was in New York, and Somebody from New York sends us the New York Times with its obituary in it. Somebody from LA sends us the LA Times with its obituary in it. From London. And I thought, maybe he knew what he was talking about. Because here his obituary ends up in all these newspapers all over the world. But I'm still amazed at what's taking place, at all the people from all over the world that are coming here. And I'll ask them when they come, why are you in the United States? Why are you in here? We came to see this place. We came here to see this. And some grown men leave crying. And it's just been really just amazing to me. It's so much fun to sit back and watch. And I love talking to people. I love telling them our story. I love telling them about Rick's conversion and getting to share that with them. And I feel like that's why God's put me here, is to tell about His love and how it can change people.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing all of that.
That was another edition of Real Life and Other Fantasies with your host, Melvin E. Edwards. Join us again next time for more stories about more things than you can imagine. Some of those true stories may even be about real life. See you next time.